Hey everybody, Questwise here. Today is a bonus video. Last week I didn't get to do any videos. It's been like 2 weeks since I've done anything. I did put a couple of small videos up. I was at a local convention last week called Cherry Capital Comic Con, in which I represented the Questwise channel in the game room. I also represented Bloat Games and some of the stuff that I wrote for them. I had a really great time, and I did a small couple quick YouTube live videos via the game room and the vendor's floor to kind of show you what was going on there. Hope you saw those, enjoyed those. They were horrible videos because the Wi-Fi in that place was really bad. But if you saw those, that's where I was last week, and I didn't get to do any official videos. So today I'm actually launching 3 videos. Excuse me. The first video was on retro clones versus reprints. The second video was my fiction review of the Great Book of Amber by Roger Zelazny. And last but certainly not least, I wanted to do a review for this game for a little while now. I did early on. I did a review of this game, and I was honored to be able to have the author send me a few copies, because I went to a convention a few years ago called Grand Con in Grand Rapids, Michigan, in which I ran this game exclusively for that convention, and I was honored to have the author actually send me a few extra copies that I could actually give away. So each session I ran, somebody won a raffle of a copy of the game for themselves. But I have my copy here today, and that game is The Hero's Journey by James M. Spahn. This is sort of a retro clone. It's based upon his love of, right here in the front, let me see, it says Swords and Wizardry White Box, I believe. He says, that's what the Hero's Journey fantasy role-playing is for me, inspired by and heavily influenced by the fantastic Swords and Wizardry White Box. It features new and modified rules to create a perfect a fantasy role-playing game as I can imagine it. I heartily agree. Of all the retro clones out there, I think that this one is probably my favorite. First of all, why is it my favorite? I love the digest size. I love digest size games put out by independent people. Any company, really. Digest size is so much easier to haul around with you. I don't have currently in the house that I own, I don't have a place where I can sort of set up and run games. I don't have a man cave anymore. I used to have access to something like that. The house that we live in currently now, that we own, does not have that capability. So I must travel, which is not always a bad thing. It's nice to get out of the house once in a while and go play games. But I have to travel to either some local stores or local breweries in order to run some games. And, you know, the current fad right now is Pathfinder and 5th edition, all of which have huge rule books and are sometimes a pain to lug with me, because it always happens that I get there, I think I take, the couple of books that I'm going to need, and I get there, and then I find out I want to reference something in the book that I don't have currently with me. Kind of a pain in the neck. But you can only carry so many of those things with you because of the size and the weight. Love the digest size of these books that a lot of the independent people are currently producing. They're light, they're easy to haul, they're easy to put several of these into a backpack, and they all together weigh about the same as 1 or 2 of the giant hardcovers. Number 2, why I love this game. Excuse me, my voice is leaving me today. Second point of why I love this game. It harkens back to those days, and if you get a chance, go back and check out the first video I uploaded today. Was if you had a choice between a retro clone or the reprint of an original, which would you choose? Would you want to go back to the originals? And sometimes I would, and go check out that video. I highly encourage that. But sometimes you want just you want a good a game that is based on the originals. It sort of encapsulates that feel, that nostalgic feel of the original games with the narratively driven, rules light systems. But at the same time, you want something that's written a little bit better and runs a little bit smoother. Some of those old games could be a little clunky in the way that they're written, a little bit difficult to search through and whatnot, and then a lot of house rulings of things that you wanted to include. that's what this is. So Mr. Spahn has added into this basically everything he's loved about every edition of the game he's played, and made some really, really cool sort of house ruling decisions in here as well. The other thing I really appreciate about this book, and you can get this in 2 different versions, and I'll try to put a link down below. I believe it's available through Drive-Thru RPG. It might be Lulu. I'll have to check, and I'll put the link down below. But this is available in, I believe, a paperback version as well. This is the hardcover version, but the hardcover version is also available in a black and white version. The interior is black and white as well. I have the color version, which is a cool, has sort of these blue toned artwork and stuff in here. And what I really appreciate it is about this is that all the artwork is very classic, and he's even gone so far as to include Larry Elmore line drawing, which is to me very evocative. Larry Elmore's art, along with Keith Parkinson's art, is what really evoked that sort of setting, that old school feel in my mind, in my heart. Those are the artists that I always look to when I think of old school art. Be it the Dragonlance covers, be it Forgotten Realms artwork, that kind of stuff. Those are the artists that really evoke the old school feel for me, and I really appreciate that he's done that sort of stuff in here as well too. You'll also probably notice that the cover of this is a great homage to the original sort of Hobbit cover by J.R.R. Tolkien. It very evokes that feel of sort of the road into the lonely mountain, and if you can see, the dragon flying in between this valley and stuff as well too. So very evocative of old school sort of fiction as well too. Another interesting thing on the back of this, he has sort of an homage to Gary Gygax dressed up as the Dungeon Master. Very beautiful stuff. Again, a nice homage to the original creator of these types of games. I love to run this game. Like I said, it's easy to carry with me. It's fun to read. It's laid out very, very well. The interior is very well done. The layout is beautiful. It's constructed very well. I've had this for several years. It's well bound. It's glued and sewn. Very, very nice. It clocks in at a total of 196 pages. That includes the open gaming license in the back and stuff there as well. There are some character sheets available online as well for this, and they're very nice and very classic feel to them as well. My favorite part of this, and this sounds kind of cheesy, but I love magic. I love the idea of magic. I love the lore of magic. I love exploring different games because of different magic systems. I love playing wizards, and I love magic items. I've always been enthralled by magic swords like Excalibur, or these crazy different magic items and relics and artifacts and stuff. Something that I find very, very, very enjoyable about what Mr. Spahn has done with this game is magic weapons, magic swords. Let me detail for you a little bit about how that works. Magic items, there's tons of magic items in here already, detailed out for you and such. But the magic weapons is my favorite part of this whole thing, and this is why. All magic weapons begin as mundane tools of warfare, but if a hero is able to perform amazing feats of valor on the battlefield and still live to tell the tale, magic may be born in that moment. I love this idea. This is one of the greatest ideas I've ever seen in a role-playing game, and it's kind of a minor little thing. You don't have to involve magic weapons in your game if you want a low magic system kind of thing. But I love the fact that it's the heroic actions of the character that make weapons magical. It's the idea that the sword that cut the ring from Sauron's hand was just a sword, right? It was just a mundane sword, because we know that the sword was shattered, and the elves kept the shards of Narsil, right? And they reforged the blade that was broken to give to Aragorn to reclaim his right as king. Was there anything magical about that sword? We're never told that. We're just told that that was the sword that cut the ring from Sauron's hand. It was the legend behind it. It was the heroic action that it performed in the hands of Isildur. All right, that sort of put this mystery and this lore and this mythology around the sword, and that's the cool thing about it. It then becomes, because of the legend, becomes a magical artifact. It that way becomes a thing. It's almost like in Beowulf, in the story of Beowulf, how weapons were named. You know, they were given because in that time period, having an axe made for you or a sword was not a cheap process. It was not an easy process. And thus these weapons would be passed from generation to generation. And they were given names, you know, whether it be serpent tongue or, you know, those types of ideas, that they were sort of given identities, and the lore behind them would pass from generation to generation. And that's what James Spahn has captured in this idea, is that weapons start off as mundane objects. It's just a sword. But the fact that this is the sword that saved the village of Oak Wild, you know, saved the village of Oakwild from the invading ogre, you know, and that sort of passed from generation to generation, where it might be hanging above the mantle in the inn, the local inn. You know, this is the sword. This is, you know, this is Ravenclaw, or this is, you know, whatever you want to kind of name it. It sort of builds that aura and mystery around that thing, and thus it becomes a magical weapon. It sort of builds awe into it. So, in the idea that, you know, Aragorn's now wielding the reforged shards of Narsil to go forth to fight against the forces of Sauron again, you see that they recognize that the foe, it has that sort of influence upon them, that to them it becomes a magical weapon. It becomes something to fear, and because of that fear, it takes on magical properties and such. Very, very cool thing about this game. If you guys don't have a copy of this, please go get a copy of this. You're not going to regret it. Great game. Produced by, you know, like I said, written by James M. Spahn through Barrel Writer Games. I'll put a link to their website down below. I'm sure that you can go right to their website and get this as well too. But I just want to say, first and foremost, and this has been out for a couple of years, but Mr. Spahn, thank you for writing this. This book is brilliant, and I love it, and I love to run it, and I love to share it with people. And I'm sorry it took me this long to get a review on it, but that's my review and the bonus video for this week. So until next time, I'm Questwise, and I'm out.